Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Welcome to the Training Sessions, an unorthodox way of training, an interview-style podcast where we have conversations on a wide variety of topics with subject matter experts with the goal of helping you be more innovative in your ministry. Well, welcome to this training session. I'm the host, Jacob, and with me is my co-host today, Kim McKell. Welcome,
Woo!
Kim.
Thanks, Jake.
Did you just cheer for yourself? That's
Cheers for the podcast.
That's such a Kim thing.
I'm excited to be on the podcast and to be a part of it.
Yeah, for regular listeners of the podcast, you may recognize Kim's name and voice because she was on a previous episode way back when, talking about community. So I thought this would be a good, she would be a good co-host to have because she does a ton of stuff similar to what the interview is about, doing family as ministry. And she has a lot of good insight into what it's like for family who have been left behind to support the missionaries, but then also, what is maybe a struggle for them as well. So, because I'm sure your family has shared some of those things with you because they don't shy away. Yeah.
They're good sharers. They're definitely sharers. So
sometimes oversharers, but you know what? That happens. So
I am too.
It's totally fine.
It runs in the family.
Well, before we get into the interview, I know that you just finished a volleyball camp, which is part of your ministry. So first, I guess just reintroduce yourself to the listeners as to who you are and what your main ministries are.
So I'm Kim, and my husband and I have been in Germany for about 14 years. And initially we came with crew and we worked developing youth ministry in Europe and worked with multiple countries, multiple languages. And then a couple of years ago, we switched over to we switched over to GEM, Greater Europe Mission. And now Ed is the regional director for the southern region. So he works with France, Belgium. This is new, so I'm probably going to skip a couple countries. The purview includes Portugal, Spain, France, Belgium, Malta, Italy, I believe. Or those are the countries we hope to include. So he's doing that, and he's also doing leader development. My ministry here is a little more locally oriented. Usually I'm working at the Black Forest Academy as the head volleyball coach there. And in addition, Ed and I both have gone on service projects where we take 20 students to various places. We've been to Uganda, we've been to Dominican Republic, and we've been to Kenya. And we take the 20 students to ministry, usually partnering with a local ministry. And it's been a really valuable and encouraging experience, not just for the people on the ground in that country, but also for our students to just see another piece of God's world and how God works there. And so I'm really thankful for that opportunity. And then most recently, we just did a big volleyball camp. So we had about 90 students. We had over 10, closer to 15 German students from different clubs. And I bring in a coach from a club that's outside of Nuremberg. And so she and her husband helped to lead the camp. And we just play a lot of volleyball, have a lot of fun, let the kids get to know the sport some and build their skills. And it's nice because it's right before the school year, so they can prep before tryouts.
Yeah, it's awesome. And you said you had 90 students for that volleyball camp, which
Yeah,
is pretty incredible because Black Forest Academy is from middle school to high school 300
yeah,
ish.
roughly.
Yeah.
You
So, I
probably had
mean,
the majority of the students from middle school. Not all of
yeah.
them. I know we didn't have all of them, but we had a lot of them. And then high school wise, um, there were probably 50, so about a quarter of the high school was present.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, I
Yeah.
mean,
It was a
those
lot of
numbers
fun.
are, I think most people would kill to have those numbers for a volleyball camp. And that probably gives you a really good idea as to who uh, might be good for your team. And, you know what, if they're in middle school, it's in a couple years, but still gives you kind of a foresight into, all right, this is the person I need to make sure that they're coming to things when I can have middle schoolers and I can
Mm,
grow their skills.
That's
Uh,
that's a definite advantage to having a camp, yes.
yeah.
But it's also good just to develop skills. I had a couple of kids who said, "Hey, look, I'm just here for the fun to hang out with my friends." But they all worked hard. They had great attitudes, and they were definitely better volleyball players by the time they left. We played about 6 hours of volleyball a day for 3 days. So,
Wow.
hmm
That's a lot.
hmm
um, well, that's really cool. And I love the fact that you also had uh, 15 Germans because it's not, for the people who don't know, it's not super common to have Germans come to a Black Forest event, you know.
hmm
So
that's
it's
true.
really cool that, you know, you got 15 people and you had a coach come from outside Nuremberg. It's a really good idea, and I think that that's neat that we can get some of the Germans to come and just experience what just fun, you know, and fun, and see that the Americans aren't all here just to take over their town or anything like that,
hmm
because Conrad's not exactly huge. So
Right, right. And we're not here to wait, there's definitely they noticed I talked to a couple of them, they noticed it's a different style of coaching, but
mm,
also um I had the opportunity to share a couple of them because we had dinner with them because they didn't wanna go home for dinner, so we we would have the 2-hour break, they would come and eat with us, and so we talked to them about why we were different, and I had the chance to share with a girl about, like, "Look, my identity isn't in my ability as a volleyball player or how good of a student I am, my identity is in Christ, and that's why I do this, and so I can be nice, like, I still like to win, but I don't have to, it's not the end of the world if somebody makes a mistake on my team because I'm not gonna, lose my mind just because somebody makes a mistake or I make a
right.
mistake, because my identity is in Christ and not in my skill, so
Yeah, that's amazing.
but just to
Really,
clarify, I still like to win.
yeah, no, I know this. Not all the listeners know that, but I definitely knew that. Yeah, that's such a cool opportunity that you had to be able to share that with those students, and all because they didn't want to go home. You know, they wanted
Mhm,
to spend more time with you, which, like I said, is definitely one of the reasons why I wanted you as the co-host for this, because when I discuss, you know, family as ministry with my mom in the interview, we talk about it's more than just blood family, and you guys do that so well. We'll get into that a little bit, but that's just kind of a preview of what will happen in the discussion, because you do you do that ridiculously well. I mean, I guess is probably the easiest way to say that. So, and right now, listeners can't see, but the face of Kim is, "Meh, I don't know," and everybody else that knows Kim is like, "Oh, shut your face politely, Kim. You do this really well." So, I won't let you say you don't. And so let's go ahead, get into the interview, and then we will have a discussion afterwards about families ministry, and then also uh, the pluses and the minuses of family being left behind and their viewpoint. So here's my interview with my mom. Well, welcome to this training session and my interview with Marge Sudheimer, who just happens to be my mom. So, hi, Mom.
Hi, sweetie.
So, Mom, other than being my mom, can you just briefly tell us about who you are?
Sure. I'm Marge Sedheimer, and I am the mother of two wonderful sons, Ben and Jake. I'm the wife of Ray Sedheimer, and I am a stepmom to three beautiful stepdaughters and a grandma to many wonderful grandchildren.
Yeah, and that's a great lead in to the first part of this interview. So, we will be doing a two-parter with my mom. One, because I wanted to talk about her main ministry, but then also for the second part, we're going to talk about the aspect or from the angle of the people who are left behind, for lack of a better term, by missionaries, the family that are left back in the home, quote unquote home. So first, let's talk about your main ministry, which is, in my opinion, your family. Um, a lot of people don't think necessarily of family as part of missions or ministry because they normally think about doing something in the community, their church, or even living overseas or working overseas. But in my opinion, an overlooked missions field is in the home. So, Mom, why do you think the home may be a neglected missions field?
I think the main reason is because of our busy lifestyles. Having to have two parents work out of the work away from home, working full-time jobs, then rushing home and getting the kids to their sporting events or their school activities or making dinner and making sure homework is done. It just all piles up and makes it very difficult to take the time to help your children learn about what's important in life, following Christ's example.
That's a great answer. Um, so you are a pastor's kid, but also a missionary's grandkid. So what impact do you think that growing up as a pastor's kid and a missionary grandkid, um, what impact do you think that had on your relationship with Christ?
Well, I don't remember when I accepted Christ as my Savior. I just know that I knew him for as long as I can remember, and that's because of my parents setting a good example in our home and making church a priority, making sure that I've got the education, the biblical education that I needed in order to walk with the Lord and to find my purpose in life.
So growing up, I don't actually know the answer to this for you. I can assume, but I've seen different strategies about church within Christian families. Some forcing their kids to go almost every day and twice on Sundays, and while others give their kids a choice to attend or not. Um, but when I was growing up, obviously, with you, why did you think it was important to have Ben and I in church almost every Sunday and encourage us to be involved in the youth group?
I wanted you to be in an environment where you saw people who loved the Lord, who worshiped the Lord, who's found that to be the ultimate purpose of their life. And I felt that was not only in the home, but in the church setting. When we found the church that we attend now and have for many years, I knew walking in there, this is where God wanted me to bring my children. And I wanted them to know that it wasn't a chore to go to church. It wasn't a burden to go to church. It could be fun. You meet wonderful people. You make lifelong friends. I wanted that to happen. And there's a story I remember about our church had in the past a really wonderful way to bring in the new year. They had a New Year's Eve party filled with food and games and activities, and then it ended at midnight with communion. Well, we took you guys there, and you were maybe 7, I want to say, and we were looking for some games to play. And there was a wonderful lady there who is a lifelong friend now. Her name is Barb. And she saw this cute little 7-year-old who wanted to play games. And she stepped away from the people her age and played a game with you. And it meant so much to you. So to this day, we have a relationship with that woman. But you saw the love that she had and that she was willing to take the time to spend time with you. That's what I wanted you to see, the love that these people had for Christ and how that transferred to the love that they had for people.
Yeah, I remember the New Year's Eve. I remember it fondly. I remember bringing games, and they were, before I started my actual board gaming hobby. So they were the kids' games and stuff. But I totally remember most of that. And I did not remember that specific story until you told me that recently. But I'm not surprised, knowing Barb. She's incredible. So I'm not surprised that she stepped away and played a game with me. She still tells the story about the spider that she was excited to show me when we went down to visit her in Alabama. So, and that was a long time ago now. So that's Barb. She's amazing.
She wouldn't let anybody take down that spider web. She said, "This is for Jake." And then when you got there, she realized that you were older than she remembered and that you maybe weren't as excited as she was hoping you would be.
Yeah, I do remember that. I'm like, I don't know why she saved a spider for me, but okay. So as you're growing up, your kids are both observant and completely oblivious to a lot of things that are going on. So what kinds of things did you and Dad do behind the scenes? And this is consciously or otherwise, as a way to represent Christ in the home.
Well, one thing I believe we did that was helpful was working in a group home for 6 young men and boys who all had Down syndrome. You came with us and you saw how these people were special and cared for and loved by God. And you got to interact with them for the first 6 years of your life, which was amazing. We made it an important part of our life to tithe. Your dad, Paul, and I wanted to make sure we were giving to God's work. So that was something we did.
Yeah, and to go to the group home, I remember still that we had some of the guys over for our birthday parties. Like, they were a part of our normal life. And I know a bunch of other people who never really interacted with people with disabilities. So it was always like, "Ugh, what? I don't know how to act. I don't know." And it was normal for Ben and I. And I think that helped us see that it's not always the quote unquote average person who's loved by God. It's everyone. It doesn't matter if they have developmental disabilities or they had blonde hair or red hair, or it didn't matter. Everyone was loved by God. So I thought that was huge that you do that. And with the tithing, we didn't always have a ton of money. So that it wasn't probably easy for you guys to, sometimes that 10%, you may have needed it. In your head, we need this in order to get the car fixed or whatever. So making that a point was a big deal.
Another thing that was important was your dad found it to be so important for him to spend as much time as he could with you. Now, he worked full time, and then later on, when you were growing up, he began teaching classes on the weekends. So he was gone a lot, but he found the time to be your baseball coach and to be involved in your Boy Scouts, and even went with both you and Ben individually to Philmont Boy Scout Ranch. So we knew the importance of being with your parents as much as possible.
Well, and just to add in, every year, one of the things Ben and I still talk about is we went on vacations every year. It didn't matter what, how the finances were. We found something to do as a family to spend time and do some fun stuff. And sometimes it was a cheaper vacation, but Ben and I didn't know. Like, we look back now and we're like, oh, that was probably, as anybody listening from BFA, there's a saying, they say a lean year when they're not doing super well with the finances. So it may have been a lean year that year, but we didn't know. We were still doing vacation. It just looked different than other vacations, but every year did.
Mm-hmm. We did a lot of camping.
Yep.
Which was fun. We have a lot of good memories attached to those camping trips.
For sure. Well, I would say, Ben and I turned out pretty well. So you nailed it. Good job. But I'm sure, and it wasn't perfect. Neither of us were. But I'm sure there are some things that you wish you had done differently. Hindsight is a powerful tool that can trap you into thinking you didn't do a good job. But in reality, you did a great job. But there's some things that you would look back now and say, maybe I would have done that differently. Can you remember any of those? I'm sure you can.
Oh,
Knowing you,
yeah.
I know you can.
Oh, we don't have time for all that I've thought of. But I was a very young mom. I was 23, I think, when I had Ben. And I didn't really have a lot of assistance with raising my children. My mom worked full time, and my mother-in-law, Bev, worked full time. So I was kind of on my own. There are times when I wish I had a better handle on how to effectively communicate with you guys when you were little, and how to effectively discipline. When I listened to a program by Chuck Swindoll, actually your dad and I listened to it to and from work, we found a way to effectively discipline, and I think that was a turning point in some ways. Another thing is I wish I would have found a more dynamic church sooner, like the one we found when you were young and continue to go to now. That church has helped me develop a stronger faith, and which I wish I would have had when you were younger to help you build your faith. But God provided things like our church and Young Life and myself and your dad in some ways. The other thing I wish I would have done differently is I wish I wouldn't have worked outside the home when you were young. For the first 6 years of your life, you were with us when we were house parents. But then when we left that employment, we felt it was necessary for me to get a full-time job. And I wish we would have sat down, looked at our finances, prayed more about it, talked to people who were good at making budgets, and figure out a way for me to stay home. I think that would have helped out a lot.
Well, that was the first 6 years of Ben, right? Ben's life. Because you were working
Oh,
pretty
that's
soon
true.
after I was born. Yeah. Which is an accurate statement. Still the
3
first
years.
6 years. Yeah. Because I ended up going to Church of the Cross too, pretty young. Because I don't remember any other church. And, you're talking about not having the help. By the time I was 1, there was one grandma and one great grandma left. Everyone else had already passed on. So, yeah, you didn't have a lot of familial help outside.
No, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so on the flip side, I always like to, balance things out. Everyone does things that they wish they would do differently for the better. But there's also some things that hopefully, there's some things you are proud of. So maybe this is what you're proud of, or maybe you just wish like, hey, this was a really good idea. I wish more parents would do this, and they're not. So you can take it either way or both.
Because of things that happened to me as I was growing up, I had developed a very poor self-image. Even though I know I had some things that I did well and that God developed in me, I still struggled with self-image. So I tried to develop a way to help you and Ben with your self-image. I would compliment you. I would make sure you knew what you did well. And that still was good, but when you saw that I had a problem with self-image, it kind of was conflicting, I guess.
Well,
So
it
that's
was a
kind
little
of
bit. Yeah, it's a little bit on both. So we'll make sure we'll get some positive things in there. And if you don't come up with any, I will. But I will say that you and my co-host for this episode, Kim, and I, actually, we all do the same thing. And maybe it's a Midwestern thing. But whenever someone compliments us, like, let's say, oh, that food was delicious, our normal first reaction is, oh, it was easy. It wasn't that hard. Like, no, yeah, say thank you, accept it, and move on. Like, no, it can just be good. It doesn't matter if it was easy. It still tasted good, and other people can't do it. So,
right.
Yeah, so we all struggle with that. However, I know growing up that I didn't matter what I was doing. I always had your support, and you guys encouraged me when I did well in things. And, kind of tried to help me continue in my strengths and things like that. So you did do a good job, despite the fact that you struggled with it personally. You did a good job instilling that in Ben and I.
Well, thanks. The other things I think I did well was church attendance, making that an important part of our lives. As we mentioned earlier, introducing you to people with disabilities. And then I think you were probably in elementary school and maybe junior high. Paul and I watched your cousins quite often on the weekends. So Timmy and Jeremy would come over and I would be in charge of them for the weekend so my sister could work. She worked a lot in those days. Still does. But anyway, they got to come over and play with their cousins, and they would come to church with us. So I was getting 4 kids ready for church in the morning. But I think that was an important part of your life, having them there.
Oh, for sure. They were like, brother cousins, every weekend they were over. So they were closer than normal cousins. And it was fun to have them around, and just to see you guys clearly as a ministry to your sister and to the boys, to Tim and Jeremy, just love on them.
That was a good time. That was a good time.
I still remember they would love to wrestle, And so Ben and I would go outside with them and we would pick them up and body slam them onto the ground. And they would just bounce right back up and go, do it again. And we're like, this is the best ever. We get to body slam people repeatedly. So it was fun.
Having them there was good for them too, because you were the older cousins, you were the cool guys, and they would help you with your paper route. I remember a picture of them carrying the paper bags, the bag that had the papers in it.
Yep, back when everyone had to deliver them by hand.
Now, remembering your paper route reminded me of something that your dad implemented, and that was your budget.
Mm-hmm.
He would have you put so much aside for savings, so much aside for tithing, so much aside for like something you wanted in the near future. And so when you got your pay from doing the paper route, you'd go upstairs in our bedroom where we had your money and all the budget information, and he taught you how to handle your money.
We were doing the envelope system before Dave Ramsey made it a cool thing. And honestly, I still use it. That's still how my budget operates now. Just more electronically than actual envelopes. But so anyway, often you hear about pastors' kids or missionary kids straying from the faith because of different behavior between church and home. So how do you think that can be addressed? And obviously, I wasn't a pastor's kid, so it's a little. This could be applied to everyone. So, just being the kid of a Christian, and you're seeing your parents, at church, and then you see them at home, and you see them at work. So how do you think parents can minister to their kids, and help them from straying from the faith based on their actions?
I believe open communication is really important. Being able to sit down with your kids and talk about what's going on in their lives and how we can incorporate our faith into that. I think it's really important to model consistent behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I recall we got to see Grandma and Grandpa Wheeler once, maybe twice a year, but very rarely was it twice. They lived in West Virginia. We lived in Wisconsin. This is after, obviously, years after they came home from the mission field. But every night at 9:00, when we were visiting, we had devotions. And he would read the Bible and apply it to our lives. That's very important. I would say I wasn't as consistent with that as I would like to have been with you guys, but I know that that's real important. Finding mentors, people that display the behavior, the attitudes that you want your kids to have is good. And you know what? I think parents can be good mentors.
Sure.
And then also to encourage them to have a relationship with Jesus, of course, their own intimate relationship with Jesus. That's so important that it's their faith, not just, riding on your shirt tails. It's their faith.
Yeah.
That's so important.
In a similar but different vein, when I was a teacher, I had students who would come in and they'd talk politics, and they were 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And they were trying to say that they would only vote for certain candidates. And I'm like, but tell me why. It wasn't their thoughts. It was their parents' thoughts. And that's not going to last, So they were all excited about it and passionate about it, but like give it 5 years and then they're going to be like, oh wait, I actually don't agree. So making it their thoughts and their faith is an important part. So it's not just well, you need to do your devotions because you need to do your devotions because that's what we do. It's like, here's benefits, here's why, we want you to want to do it, that kind of thing.
I wanted my children to not be ignorant about their faith, but to know Christ intimately. And that had to be on their own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I think it's important to establish a strong community with the church that you go to and outside of the church. You're not always going to hang around with Christians.
Yeah.
But hanging around with good people, with good morals, who will brighten your life in some way. I think that's important too. So kids can see, you don't just have to hang out with Christians, but you can find some wonderful friends through other means. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you look at our neighborhood growing up, I honestly don't even know how many of them went to church. I think maybe the Smelters did, but I don't know.
I think.
And there's like 4 families that were all really close. And you guys weren't like, oh no, they don't go to church, you can't hang out with them. It was, go hang out with them.
No, these were fun people.
Yeah, they were fun people. They were good people. They didn't believe the same things we believed, but that didn't mean that we couldn't spend time with them.
Yep.
So you guys taught us how to interact with non-Christians and to keep our morals and our beliefs, despite hanging out with people who had different beliefs. So that was a big deal.
One of my fondest memories of doing something like that was I met this lady named Marilyn through employment. She had quite a few disabilities. And the first time I met her, she kicked me out of her house. But we became friends. She was nothing like me, nothing. Other than she was a person who wanted to be loved and cared for and not used.
Yeah.
And so she would, actually, I would invite her to come to my house. And now she was a smoker, but I kept a lighter in my car in case she forgot hers. And she would come to my house and she would go on the deck and smoke her cigarettes and then come in and eat with us and fellowship with us. And that's one of my fondest memories. And I think it helped me so much to be able to help her, even though she was so different from me. And one Christmas, I was taken aback because she took the little money that she had and she bought me a Christmas gift. And that was so tender and so special to me that she would do that. And I used that crock pot for years. Anyway, I digress a little, but I just remembered
right.
Marilyn.
Yeah. We've been talking about family as ministry, and it can go beyond just the kids that you raised or didn't raise, because you do have stepdaughters. And it can even go beyond blood, even beyond, nieces and nephews. You and Ray do a lot for your children, your grandchildren, extended family, and even the adopted family. You're called Mama Margie by a guy who comes over for dinner during family dinners every week. So why do you continue to do that even in your retirement? You're supposed to be retired, so don't you deserve a break? Couldn't you stop this?
Oh, yeah. And my halo's slipping a bit because sometimes when I'm done doing it, I'm like, I'm so tired. I just want to stop.
Yeah.
But
is that halo slipping a bit, or is that just you don't have as much energy as you used to? And grandkids can take a lot of energy to keep up with.
And not only grandkids, kids and stepkids can take a lot of energy. No, I do it. I love doing it. I love giving my family a place to get together and talk about things. I like being in touch with them as often as I can. We have a stepdaughter and son-in-law and two grandchildren in Tennessee. I don't get to see them much. But the ones up here, we get together once a week for dinner. And again, we don't get to see Ben and Crystal and Sabrina and Paul very much. But the ones that are close by, I try to bless them by cooking for them, by providing a meal. Part of the reason is selfish. I love to be loved, and I want to do things that my grands go, wow, grandma's pretty cool, or whatever they say these days.
Still haven't heard them say that though.
No, probably not.
I'm just
I
kidding.
did get, I do get, sometimes I don't know if it's because they really mean it or they want something, but they'll say, oh, Mimi's my grandma name. Mimi, you're incredible. Mimi, you're awesome.
Yeah, if it's not immediately followed up by "Can I have a cookie?" then it's probably pretty genuine,
I hope so.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, my God has blessed me with these wonderful grandchildren, with my children, with my stepdaughters, with my in-laws, my son-in-laws, and hopefully I'm not forgetting anybody. Well, and friends, like the one who calls me Mama Margie. Who would have known he'd be in my life? But he's a
Right.
blessing.
Yep.
So I get blessed.
Because he's the best friend of your stepson-in-law. So the paths would not have crossed
Nope.
otherwise, So
Probably
yeah,
not.
it's I know I've been blessed by other people who have adopted me into their families. So speaking on his behalf and anybody else that comes over, I know that they're blessed by that as well.
Yeah, another thing we've done, and sometimes it's a blessing to you, but sometimes it's just something you need to do.
Yeah.
And we had a young man live with us for, I think, just a little over a year because he was financially strapped and he needed a place to live, and living with his parents wasn't an option. So we did that. And then someone in my family needed a place to live for a while. So we opened our house to that person as well. Sometimes it's just something you feel God really directing you to do, whether or not you feel a blessing from it right away. You know that you are blessing them and that God is hopefully being represented.
Yeah, I totally think it is. I think you guys do a great job of, you and Ray both, and in your own ways, and that's to be expected. Everyone is gonna minister to their family in different ways. You do a lot of it through food and spending time with people. Ray does a ton of projects and helps out that way. So you both do that well. But what are one of two of your favorite ways to show Christ's love to your family?
Being available to them when they need a babysitter. We babysit in the summer 2 days a week for 3 kids. Next week, we will have the Michigan Grands down here for a whole week. So I like being able to either give the parents a break or help them not worry about who's watching their kids.
Yeah.
And, well, one way that my husband does is he's now a soccer coach, an assistant soccer coach. So he is for our granddaughter, and he is spending a lot of time helping with that. And another thing that my grands got to participate in, which has blessed me to no end, is it used to be every year, but now it's every other year. I do a full-blown Christmas musical at our church. And by full-blown, I mean costumes, scenery, staging, and choreography and memorization and so on. And my grands have got to be in, as of this December, at least 2 of them. And it's a joy, such a joy to see them doing that and to create that memory for them. As a matter of fact, they're still singing the music from the Christmas musical we had 2 years ago. So
That's
that's a
hilarious.
blessing to me and to them, I think.
Yeah. And you've been doing that for a long time, because Ben and I were both in these musicals, and you've retired, I think, from it like 6 times, something like that.
No,
And
twice.
they keep asking you to come back. Only twice? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mom, I think that you, Dad, and Ray both are, all three of you are examples of showing Christ's love to your family, and I know I've benefited from it, obviously, but we all have, and so thank you for coming on and being interviewed and talking about that. I know some of these questions made you think back about 40-ish years. So that's not always easy to come up with examples. So I appreciate you taking the time to think back and just chat with me about it.
Well, do you remember when we were out walking and I said, "Oh, I would have liked to have been on your podcast"? And you went, "What?"
Yep. Yep.
Oh boy.
Yep. And you didn't know what was coming up, but yep. Now I get you for 2-parters. So let's go ahead and just get straight into the second part. This was probably the first part that I actually thought about interviewing you for. But as we were talking about it, then I realized that there was your main ministry was something else of value to discuss that we hadn't really discussed before. So for the second part, I want to talk to you about the angle of being the non-missionaries in the family that are it's hard to say left behind, but you know that the missionaries leave when they go to the field. So when I first thought about joining the missions field, I was living in Maryland, and I remember that one of the first things I did was had dinner with you to basically get your blessing to pursue this. I didn't need it. I was a grown man, I was an adult. I had my own job, but I wanted it. It worked out perfect in God's timing that you happened to be a lot closer to Maryland than you normally would have been. So we were able to meet halfway, which, totally a God thing. But how hard was it for you to give that blessing?
It wasn't hard at all because immediately I said to myself, I cannot stand in God's way of using you in this way. I just knew it's just the way you described it, how it came about, how you found out about this position, what God did to prepare you for this position. It was a no-brainer. I'm not going to stand in God's way of you doing his work.
You paused a little bit in that answer. I can't stand in the way.
Oh.
And I was like, you can't stand you living here in the U.S.? What was that, Ma?
No. I can't stand in the way of God using you.
Yeah.
You stinker. And also God had helped me by you living in Maryland. So I had a little bit of time with you not being around.
Yeah. And
So
just for background for everyone listening, I had no intention of ever leaving Toledo area. I love Toledo. I still do. But never thought I would leave it, and then couldn't get a job. In fact, I had the head of HR at a school tell me he would give me a job if he had one, but there weren't any. So I had to go to Maryland. And that's, not terribly far away, but it's, an 8-hour drive. So it's not terribly close either. So I've been with Jem almost 15 years now. What were some of your favorite moments, not for me, but for you, about my time with Jem?
getting to go to Germany. How fun was that? So visiting you in Germany and Ray and I taking the trip over there. What, 3 times I think we've gone, I want to say?
Something like that. I don't remember.
And meeting your friends. What a wonderful group of friends God had for you there. People that you, realistically, some of them you could have met here. But God had you meet them there.
Yeah, including the co-host Kim. She, grew up minutes from where you live now, and student taught at my high school just a couple years before I got there. So yeah, could have met her here, didn't.
God really used your personality to help you develop these friendships. You're such an outgoing and fun and friendly and helpful and caring person. And so these people couldn't help but be attracted to you, I think. So seeing how loved you are, that was wonderful. That's what a parent wants to see, is how loved their children are. And you were very loved and are continued to be loved by all these friends in your life. And I loved hearing stories from you. What's going on? What ministries you were involved in, how you helped people, the places that you went, and the experiences you had. It was very exciting and touching. And you know what else? You were doing what my grandparents did for 30 some years in what was then the Belgian Congo. And I know that my grandparents and my mom and dad would have just been thrilled, as all of your grandparents would have been thrilled. But because they had that experience, my mom was born in Africa. So to know that their grandson was following in those footsteps would have been very meaningful to them.
So we start with the good, and then we take the bad. We take the good, we take the bad, the facts of life. So what were some of the more difficult moments for you?
Support raising! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It was hard, mostly because seeing how hard it was for you. And you're thinking, why is this so hard? If this is where God wants you, and if people see what a wonderful opportunity this is for reaching others for Christ, why is this so hard to raise a support? But it is. And so that, I remember crying because you were crying, and it's just, that was a very difficult time. The other thing was just missing you. I mean, I kind of like you, and I like having you around. And
well, the feeling's mutual.
Mutual. Yes. Those were the biggest things. And I couldn't just drop everything and go see you. I couldn't take a long weekend. I had to plan. I had to save money or whatever. And to go see you, it wasn't easy. Thank heavens for modern technology where we can talk and we can FaceTime and all that. That was very helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just to give an example of not being able to just drop at the drop of a hat, come see me. I was just in the hospital for several days getting tests done, and it was a little emotional for me. And you were like, "Oh, I would be there if I could." And it's like, I know, but it just wasn't feasible to hop on a flight last minute and come for, wasn't a major surgery or anything like that. So that's just one example. And I know there were other times that you wish you could have just hopped in your car and been there the same day, or, even taken a cheaper flight, whatever, makes it difficult. So you mentioned support raising. There's a lot of highs and lows for me when it comes to support raising. Could you go a little bit deeper into why that was difficult for you?
It was difficult for me to see you disappointed, to see you struggling when you knew what you were doing was where God wanted you to be, what God wanted you to do. So when the money wasn't coming in as quickly as you expected, I felt that you were feeling rejected. And that is difficult for any parent to go through, is when their child feels like they're being rejected. You weren't being rejected, but it's easy to feel that way.
Sure.
What can I do differently to get this money to come in? Why isn't it coming in quickly? What am I going to do? Is this not where God wants me? Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Support raising is, it's definitely ups and downs, and some people are better at it than others, and I was okay at it. So there's a lot of highs and lows for sure. So not many people think about the family that's left behind or the good friends that are left behind, and how they can support them. So I'm talking, how could people support you and Ray and Ben, um, those people, that the family that don't have their loved one near them anymore? So is there anything you can think of that people could have done to stand by you and support you when it was tough?
One of the things our church does very well is pray. And I felt supported by my church family through prayer, primarily. And there were some people who also in my friendships, that and family, that supported you. And that was uplifting to me, to know that they loved you and they knew that you were doing what God wanted you to do. So they were ready and willing to help support you. So I think if you are financially unable to help, not a problem, but just let the family and the missionary know you are praying. You are consistently being lifted up. That's the most important thing, I believe. And that's what I
Yeah.
received from a lot of people.
Oh, that's great. I think, in addition to that, something that probably would help, and I'm sure you got it from some of your close friends like Vicky and Jody, but just having people listen, and sympathize with what is difficult. What was, why are you missing me, especially, or why are you down, or what do you wish you could do? Just having people come alongside you and say, okay, tell me everything, and let me just be there and listen.
Yeah, we have to add Christy to that mix too. She was
Oh
very
yeah.
important. I have so many friends. It'd be hard to name them all, but people who did listen, who just hugged me.
Yep.
I know you're missing your guy. Here's a hug, and that, and I've had countless people come up to me and say, "We're praying for Jake. How's he doing? What's going on?" Checking up on him. That's a great way to help the family that's left behind, so to speak.
What tips would you give to people listening who might be the family left behind on how they can support their missionary family? So those that actually did go, because I think you guys did a really good job in supporting me at my time, both when I was forced to be back in the States for a year at a time or whatever, but also while I was over there. So what kind of tips would you give to people to help out?
Letters are so important. Today, with, like, as we mentioned, FaceTime and the ability to call without having to pay exorbitant long distance rates is really nice. But everyone loves to get a letter. It's something you don't expect, and you can reread. And so we tried to do that. Phone calls, as I said. Um, I remember one of your birthdays was coming up. And so I called Kim, your co-host for today. And I said, Kim, I really like it if you and Ed or whomever would take Jake out for dinner because I can't do that for his birthday. And I said, here's the amount of money I have. And I thought, well, it's not that much. But she said, here in Germany, that's a lot for going out to eat.
Yeah.
So we're good. We can take care of him in that way. Another way that you were supported was your Aunt Deborah came to see you. So this is your dad's oldest sister, came to see you. She wanted to visit her nephew in Germany, and she wanted to see what he was doing and what his life was all about. So I thought that was very awesome. It's not something that a lot of people can do, but another way you can do that is if you can go on a mission trip. Jake has had mission trips short term that people could attend and thereby show their support in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way. Talk to the missionary first, I will say that. And
Oh, yes.
organize a trip like that. Don't just assume that they can use you whenever you can come. But yeah, no, that's a great tip. Now, again, just going the opposite. What would you say to the missionaries on how they can love well on those that they left behind?
Well, you got the same kind of thing. Send letters, make calls, remember birthdays, special occasions. That sounds good. Visit when you can, but I know that's very difficult.
Yeah, but I mean, not necessarily more difficult than people coming to visit you. So, anything else you would like to add?
Well, most important thing is how proud I am of you.
Mhm.
I told you there would be tears.
Yeah, well, I already had them, so it's fine.
Yeah, I saw. Very proud of you for stepping out of your comfort zone completely and going to a foreign country where you didn't know anybody. And so I'm just so proud of all that you have done for our Lord and for the people of his people, how much you have loved them and cared for them. And you're pretty awesome.
Well, that is a good way to tie up. I still have the last question I'm going to ask you. But since I've never actually officially announced this on the podcast, I guess I should probably say it now that this is the final episode. So thank you, Mom, for coming on. The training sessions will end with this episode. We wanted to end it well with my mom. I'm disappointed there's just not a host to take over because I'm leaving Gem at the end of this month. So, well, as of this month that it's released. I'm leaving Gem to go get my doctorate at Ohio State University. So I appreciate all of the people who have listened over the years that we've been doing this. And I hope that people have taken away different ways that they can just taken away more information about missions and ministry and how they can support people, gotten ideas for what ministry can look like in their life.
I'm not a missionary, but I loved your podcast. I loved hearing you. And sometimes I would go, oh, I need to tell Jake, where is he? And it's because I was listening to the podcast.
we do tend to start a lot of our sentences with, so I was listening to a podcast and yep. So let's go ahead and end as I end every one of the interviews I do. What do you nerd out about, Mom?
I know what you think I'm going to say. You think I'm going to say British detective shows or British baking shows. Oh, you weren't?
Nope, but those would have been okay.
I do nerd out about those a bit. I love baking shows. and detective shows. I also, when it comes time to do the Christmas musical, I nerd out about that a lot. I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what we should do. So I do nerd out about that. I nerd out about my children and stepchildren, and I nerd out about my grandchildren.
Very much
I love
so.
them all.
Most conversations are revolve around them, and that's okay because you are a great mom and a great grandma. So it makes sense. Well, Mom, thanks again. You're awesome. You did a great job. And like I told you, you would. And I'm going to tell people right now that when we first talked about this, you were like, well, I have enough to say. No, you and I, neither of us is that ever going to be our problem. So we always have enough to say. And I appreciate all that you did say for our listeners. So thank you, Mom. Love you.
You're welcome. Love you. Bye.
Well, it was a unique thing for me to interview with my mom, or interview my mom, but it was fun. She was super nervous, like almost everybody is. Whenever I do an interview, they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I can do this." I'm like, "We've had a conversation before, so yeah, I know you can."
You make
It's
it really easy though, Jake.
well, I appreciate that. I mean, that's the goal. Is that it's supposed to be a conversation. We just happen to be looking at a computer, and it's being recorded. Plus the magic of
Wait, what?
editing.
This is being recorded?
Yeah, sorry, Kim. It is, yes.
I'm just kidding. It's okay. It's great. I love I love the opportunity to talk with you anytime, Jake. So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. My goal has always been since beginning, like, let's just have a conversation. Let it be real. Like we're sitting in the same room. Because of technology, we're not in the same room, and that's okay. In fact, in the interview, I discussed that this will be the last one that I'm doing because I'm stepping away from Greater Europe Mission and going to get my doctorate at Ohio State. So I'm actually not in the same continent, let alone the same room as you right now, Kim.
No, but go Bucks.
Go Bucks. That's right. So I'm super excited about that. But little sad about the ending of the podcast. And this has been something I've enjoyed a ton. But that's not the point of this episode. So let's talk a little bit about the interview. Did anything in particular stick out to you that that you would either just emphasize as like, oh, I think that same thing, or oh, I didn't, maybe it's something new that you didn't even think about.
Well, I mean, your mom is wonderful. She's great. She has a great perspective. And I think you're reflected a lot in her hospitality and her warmth and her way of making people feel good. She's got a gift with that, and so do you. So, um, when I was, the first thing was just in her talking about her family and then not stopping like normal people, or not normal people, but people typically will say like, "Oh yeah, I have a husband," or I have, if maybe they're single and they say, "Oh, I have a dog or I have a cat," or I have a niece or nephew, or if they're older and they have grandchildren, they'll be like, "Yeah, I have grandchildren," and then they'll add in their kids and stuff. And your mom was like, "Well, I have these and these and these," and she started listing and she just kept going, and that was just a beautiful, like, she just has anyone is family, and, like, I've had the opportunity to stay at her home, and it's like, you're part of the family, and you have fridge privileges, and you can do this, and you can do that, and so, I mean, her like, she's a beautiful picture of, like, one of my favorite verses, Micah 6:8, which is, "Act justly, love mercy, walk humbly." She just walks humbly and does her thing, and
Yeah.
just everybody brings everybody along for the ride, um, and so, like, a sense of, I guess, her interview left me with like a sense of peace. So that was really cool.
That's
So it's
nice.
more about not what she said, but what I was left with at the end of it.
So I can almost guarantee that my mom, while she's listening to those words that you just said, she'll do this whole thing of, no, that's not true.
I would do the same thing. Yeah.
I know this.
I can only hope to be as cool as Marge one day. Let's put it that way. She's the best.
I totally agree. I mean, I think you are super cool. I mean, I totally agree that she is the best.
Mhm.
Being around you and being around my mom for years, I've noticed both of you have that same tendency of downplaying what you do. And maybe that's a thing that people who serve their family so well, they downplay it. I don't know, because
Well, I mean, we don't do it for like it's a gift for us. I guess I can speak for myself. For me, it's a gift when somebody comes in my home.
Mm, yeah. So just to let listeners know, and who don't know you, what you and Ed do in your home for other people is incredible. I mean, every Sunday night, you have people over and we either watch football or, once football's over, Amazing Race or something, and we have dinner, and you end up feeding, I think, like 6 times the amount of people that are actually in your family sometimes. And,
Yeah.
almost every time I'm over there, there's someone else that will pop in at minimum if they're not already over there. So you just have kind of that open door policy, that you do that really well. And that's something that I think extending the ministry to your family is probably pretty common. It's your family's not just blood, it's your friends and it's friends of your family, and it's people in need, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's probably pretty common, though I don't think it's necessary to do ministry to your family well is to have to include other people. I
No,
think
I think there are people. It's you also have to consider the capacity that
yeah,
your family has. When our kids were really little and we had just first moved here, um, we had like fewer people in our home. The flow was smaller, and the just none of us had the margin or the capacity to do that. But as our kids have gotten older, our ability to open our homes, the kids didn't require quite as much maintenance, and so we were able to free up some space to bring other people in,
yeah,
a little bit.
definitely.
So, and I mean, everybody has a different. I think Ed has a different capacity. Sometimes he's like, "Mm, we're gonna have a quiet night," and but he's usually coming along for the ride. He does great, so I really appreciate his support.
Yeah, but that is something good to note. If you're married and you're doing your family as ministry, it's your whole family. It's not just one of the people in the family. So, if Ed did need a quiet night, ministering to your family includes giving Ed the space that he needs on occasion.
Yes, there are times
Came-
when I forget that. So yes, that's definitely much to his chagrin or someone else's. Yeah, there's times.
so I know Ed doesn't always listen to these, so you're welcome, Ed. You won't hear it. But uh, I think about Kay Baker, who's been on a couple times as a co-host and on as a guest, and she's an extrovert, big time, and then her husband is an introvert, big time. So when she has people over, whether it's for multiple days or just one day or whatever, there's just times where Ray will just all of a sudden not be there, and that's a thing. And they're fine with it. And Kay just keeps on entertaining and doing a great job. And Ray's like, all right, I'm peacing out because there's too many people here.
Mhm.
And that's something that they figured out how to
Yeah.
meet the needs of all members of their family.
Yeah, you just have to navigate that differently than you would, if it was just you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and
Yeah.
sometimes it gets over, too much, but generally it's, uh, it's okay most of the
Yeah.
time.
I think ministering to your family is something that is underrated too often. People are like, well, it's just, I have to do that. No, I mean, there's a difference between like taking care of your family's needs and really witnessing and ministering to your family. That's completely different. You can cook food for your family, you can provide them with shelter and clothing and all of that, and they'll be fine. But to really like pour into them and love them and to show them God's love, that's a whole different level that I think, my mom, uh, she does a really good job of doing that. And that's obviously why I wanted to have her as a guest for this episode.
Well, yeah, and she nailed it, she of identifying, like, there's a difference between just the functionality of having a cafeteria, here it
Yeah.
is, come eat your food, um, but really pouring into, paying attention to what people like and what people need, whether it's quiet time or just a one-on-one conversation, or they need, um space or they need a game night or something. And even with having people in our home, part of the motivation for that was really selfish in that we knew that there was a time when we couldn't just be uh we couldn't be everything to our kids, and that we wanted other people around our kids so that they were comfortable to say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Because we're old and we bring in you, Jake, and other people, and then um, they could speak into the lives of our kids in a
Yeah.
different way than we could. And that was super valuable. And also math. Jake was really good. You were really good at helping with German math. So there was that too. We all needed help with that. So.
Well, it was definitely something that I was happy to be able to step in because of all the stuff that you guys have done and included me as family.
Uh, well, you said yes. You said yes, so you
Well,
had a choice.
in my opinion, it was the not requirement, but just if I'm going to be family, this is what family does. And as I've said multiple times in the podcast, the joke in my family is from that old um, drug commercial of I learned it by watching you. Okay, I say that to my mom. I learned it by watching you. Okay, I learned to give back to the family to minister as much as possible. If for example, I talked about how I'm living in Columbus and I'm living with a family. They have 4 kids, and yesterday, the second youngest looks at me and says, "Will you play with us sometime?" And I'm like, "I absolutely will play with you. I can't right this second, but I absolutely would love to play with you." And she's like, "Okay, well, maybe sometime, if my parents go to a wedding, you can babysit us." And so her dad was like, "Go to a wedding? What? What?"
They
But
just smelled fresh meat.
yeah,
This guy's an easy one, I can tell,
yeah.
and he's
So
gonna be fun to play with. Yeah, yeah.
so that's just it seems natural to me. I'm here living in their house as a family. They're and so of course I'm going to play with the kids, and of course I'm going to watch them, and so their parents can go do whatever the heck they want to do. They could go stare and watch paint dry. I don't care. Just have some time without having to worry about the kids and enjoy each other's company. So anyway, but the other thing we talked about with my mom is being the family that I hate using the term left behind, but I mean, I can't think of anything else. So the family that is left behind by the missionaries who are, whether they're going overseas or just moving to another area of the U.S. to do ministry or whatever it is, there are people that they are leaving um, who have to also adjust to a new normal.
That's true.
I know it's tough for the missionaries to miss things, missed my niece and nephew's baptisms and, it's missed games and things like that I would love to be at if I was closer, but I couldn't get there for those things.
Mhm.
But from their side, it's similar, but also different because they didn't choose this, when
That's true.
we chose to go overseas, we chose to be away from our family. They didn't. And this can go for friends too.
Mhm.
So I don't know what, from your family's perspective, your parents, Ed's and siblings, and your Ed's parents and siblings, what have they expressed anything to you about the difficulties of that?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Ed and I are both the youngest of four, but we each have different experiences because his family kind of all lives in the same region, or in the same town. And so, um, my family's uh uh more spread out. And so it was a more common, I think, for my siblings, for me not to see them for an extended period of time. So that was, and the niece and my nieces and nephews. Although before we left, we were living in a place where we could drive up and um go to a track meet or a tennis match that my nephews or niece had. We could watch a soccer game. So we missed that, and you're absolutely right. They missed that too. Um, they didn't choose it. I think obviously, if you want to get really, really deep into it, you can be like, look, our obedience to God is not a choice to leave you. It's a choice of being obedient to God and how we choose to, what His calling is for our life. And we felt really strongly. And there was some opposition, honestly, from our family at the beginning of not wanting us to go. And really, like you said, they don't keep things secret. So they were pretty upfront about that, about their feelings about, like, well, no, we don't want you to go. And um, it actually was, ironically, one of the things that made us more certain because even in spite of the opposition, uh, we still felt confident in our calling. And so I was like, "Look, this is what God's called us to do, and it's your fault because you've always encouraged us to be obedient and to trust God, and this is what He's calling us to do." And then they were like, "Well, how can we argue with that?"
Yeah.
Um, doesn't mean they were, super excited about us not being close by. But it was definitely a, a change, you know. And even now, we have times when we're back together with family, and we realize we've missed some things, and that's hard. Um, but we do our very best to stay connected and to communicate with even nieces and nephews who are now grown and having their own kids. And so it is the family though. Like we take turns now. Like my mom is 92, and so there are times when maybe she needs some extra support, or my sister, who is really the closest person to help her out. And sometimes there needs to be something done. And, even for my mom's birthday today or tomorrow, I'm going to send a Chick-fil-A and I'll have it delivered. So she'll get that. Um, but anyhow, so it's just a series of figuring things out of how to do that. When my kids were little, my mom would call and she would read books to the kids over FaceTime. So
Yeah.
that was really neat. And just I mean, I'm so thankful for technology and ways to stay connected that didn't exist. Like, I think about the missionaries in the past, and those 70 years ago, that kind of missionary, that was different um, kind of job and obedience than I have to sacrifice. Different sacrifice.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the difficult part for the family left behind is that, they want to, I'm sure they want to communicate the stuff that's tough, but in a way that's not producing guilt. But being able to express, like, man, I really would have loved for you to have been here, or something like that, because then that does allow room for a discussion to happen, saying, okay, well, I didn't realize how important it was for you. Maybe, if I know far enough in advance, I can fly back.
Mm-hmm.
I can figure out a live stream situation that we can do that, something like that, where there can be that discussion, but instead of it just leaving it as, well, I really wish you were here, and this thing happened 2 days ago, so nothing we can do about it now, but here's some guilt.
Right.
Let me toss that out of the fire, like.
Right. No,
That's not
I
super
think
helpful.
the big thing, communication, you're right, is really, really um, so important. And
Yeah.
and you can communicate fun things, not just hard things. And it does take effort sometimes to reach out. My siblings are all grown; they have their own families, they're busy. But there are times when I'll just send a funny text or a meme or something to the family. We have a family chat, or we have a time when I can just do something that's casual, as
Yeah.
if I were next door, but I'm not.
Yep.
And that way, when they feel like the door is open to communicate when things are hard, or when, hey, we need help, or we need you to come for this, or it would mean a lot if you could, or what's your schedule like, and we'll work our vacation or um our event around yours.
Yeah.
And just and yeah, so that's something, and it's great to really appreciate both Ed's family and my family, because when we come in, we do, like, they leave space for us, and they're like, hey, you want to do this with us, or um or hey, we really need help, and they'll just throw whatever they're doing at us, and be like, come on, come help, and we can jump right in midstream. So we're really thankful for that.
Yeah. It's important for both sides. Like, I don't want to put everything on the family that's left behind, but so I won't. Missionaries have to recognize, like, this is a thing. It's tough for them too. Yes, they're still in their home culture. They have maybe more family around them. What we're doing as missionaries is tough. Yes. However, it's
Right.
a different kind of tough,
And they
they're.
can't just stop everything because we show up for 2 weeks out of the summer, and yeah,
Yeah.
they're gonna still do their life the way they need to.
Yep.
And we kinda have to adapt to it,
Yeah.
because indeed we are the ones who left.
Yeah.
Um, and we have to acknowledge that, or acknowledge, like, hey, how can we help? Um, yeah, yeah. So building in the times that we can come in and be connecting in meaningful ways to help them out and to be like, okay, we're here now. What can we do?
Yep.
And how can we
Absolutely.
help? And how can we be a part of the conversation, of the community, of the family? Like, what can we do to make it more important? So whether that's participating in important events or just being, being there for a week and sitting down and playing with the kids,
Mm-hmm.
or um, making them dinner, or showing up when somebody goes into the hospital, you know, little things and big things, might mean as much to sit down and just play with a 3-year-old.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's
Yeah.
fun.
Well, it can be. It can also not be, but
Agreed, agreed. But they got to do it all the time. So,
yeah, no, and it's worth it. And remembering that when we're back for however long, to take that time to say, look, I'm not working. I'm spending time with you. Um, this is what I want to do. So I'm going to push everything else to the side and say, here's a day, here's 2 days that I can do. You're not always going to be able to do long periods of time, but carve out some time to spend with them and say, and show them, like, you matter. We're here.
hmm
We are family. Um, so I want to be here. I want to be a part of your life. And, it's going to look different, but when I'm here, I'm here,
yep, yep. And actually, one of the most meaningful connections that I made with my sister was to have her bring teams here.
Yes.
So as we talked about our ministry and what it actually looked like on the ground, her brain started going and she was like, "Would you ever need like a women's ministry team to come and do something?" Because she worked for a women's ministry team at a large church in Memphis. And so I said, of course, we could make something work with that. Let me talk to some people. And so I talked to them, and they came 4 or 5 times, I think 5 times. They came and they ran um, women's retreats and high school retreats for girls. And it was it was such a fun thing for me to get to work with my sister on an activity, on a project, um, and then for her to bring people who I knew, who yet again now are their family, to cross worlds, where my worlds were colliding,
Mm-hmm.
and that was such a gift. And the last retreat they did was right before COVID, and it was they had raised money and allowed us to stay at this lovely retreat center in Beatenberg in Switzerland. So the view is magnificent and it was so refreshing, and the messages were just on point. And then and then like 3 days later, things got really complicated, and COVID, and the school shut down, and to this day there are women who will find me in the community and will be talking about that team who came and refreshed them, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, that's all my sister and her
Yeah.
church. So it was a pretty special thing.
Yeah. And it's tough to know what's going to be helpful. So you might be hesitant to be like, oh, well, I don't know if that would be helpful to bring a team. And well, you know what? That is an easy way to figure that out, is have a discussion, talk and see if there is something that you can be done. Because then that just provides a way for family to come and feel like they're a part of the ministry, because they are, even
hmm
if they're not bringing a team. But also, this can help them feel it a little bit more, and make it more of a, they understand how they're partnering with you
right.
guys.
And they get the significance of it too. We had a group come and they went with us to one of our youth events with 400 students, and had some really meaningful interactions and just really positive. And they they left, and they kind of were like, "Oh, we see what you're doing now."
Yeah.
And while we don't love that you can't be next door to us anymore, we also understand that what y and it's not so much like what we're doing, but what the Lord is doing in this ministry is important, and we understand why you wanna be a part of it.
Yeah.
So that was really meaningful to us that we've had a family visit and kinda be like, "Oh, we get it," you know?
Yeah.
And that's really great.
Yeah, that is great. Well, Kim, thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing some of your heart and your wisdom. I appreciate you for so many reasons that I can't even begin uh, to say. So, just really appreciate you coming on and being a part of this podcast as well as part of my life. So, thank you, Kim.
Jake, you're a big part of our lives too, so thanks.
Well, that is the end of this episode, but also the end of the training sessions. So I will not say until next time. Instead, I will say goodbye.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.